Straight ahead, mask mandates and more. But is Biden's COVID plan working for America? This is Saturday Agenda.
I'm directing my team to procure an additional additional 500 million more tests to distribute for free. That means 1 billion tests in total to meet future demand. And we'll continue to work with the retailers and online retailers to increase availability.
Welcome back to Saturday Agenda. That's President Biden this week announcing the administration would double its order to 1 billion at-home COVID tests amid a nationwide shortage. The White House ramping up efforts to make COVID tests more accessible after facing criticism from both Republicans and Democrats over the lack of inventory as the highly transmissible Omicron variant rips through the country. Joining us now to discuss this is Gerald Commissiong. He's the CEO of one medical company that makes several types of COVID tests. Great to have you with us. What's the biggest issue now with the testing debacle?
Well, there's two issues. One is the rapid antigen tests that are being used are not very accurate insofar as they don't detect disease early. So if you take a test today and test negative, it doesn't necessarily mean you have COVID. You could test negative tomorrow. You could test positive tomorrow. There are a couple of things related to nose versus throat swabbing and really understanding how to take the swab properly to get an accurate answer. The next thing is obviously we need more PCR testing. So we need to get testing out there at the local level so that you can get those accurate answers very early in the disease course. And the reason why that's important is because we are starting to see some antiviral pills come onto the market. If you want to get one of those pills, you need to first test positive. And we have our pill, Tolovir, that is going to be doing a phase 2 clinical trial readout in a couple of weeks where we're expecting some very strong data. This will be coming to the market after Paxlovid by Pfizer and Molnupiravir from Merck. So it's really important that we get this testing done right so that we can get effective treatments to people early and make sure they don't end up in the hospital. And if they are in the hospital, make sure we get them out quickly.
Absolutely. I've had that concern, too, which is, are people doing these tests correctly? How accurate are they? But in the bigger picture, is your company going to be assisting in any way with the Biden administration in getting more tests out there to the public?
Oh, absolutely. So we have our own lab, Provista Diagnostics, where we have a capacity upwards of 20,000 tests per day, PCR tests, which are highly accurate, means you won't have to take them over and over and over to get a result. And we're also supplying several labs throughout the country. So right now, we can probably account for over 100,000 tests per day out of our clientele. And we intend to ramp that to get up to 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000 tests per day to really expand that capacity. We also are developing a new type of test called the Tolo test, which looks at something called the 3CL protease. That is the exact target of what the Pfizer drug Paxlovid is going after and our own drug Tolovir are going after. And that has the benefit of potentially catching the disease earlier than PCR and really measuring infectivity, which is the big question about when can you be released from quarantine? Am I still infective? There's a proxy for that with antigen rapid tests. That is not really rooted in good science as of yet. PCR tests can do that, but it means you need to take a second PCR test, and that's usually not at home where you measure the CT value. So there's a real need to understand infectivity for quarantine release, and we think we can do that with our Tola test.
That's really interesting. Is there any merit to reports that the rapid test would be any less effective in detecting Omicron?
Well, it's not necessarily the rapid tests themselves, but how they're used. So if you look at the instructions for use, when you get it at your house, it tells you to do a nose swab. But we've seen on Twitter, and now there are a number of publications coming out where people are testing negative when you take a nose swab, but positive when you take a throat swab. And so we have to change the way we instruct people to take these tests if we're going to start to get better results. But the practical reality is still that the current tests out on the market, the rapids, the biology is such that it comes 1 to 2 to 3 days after a PCR test. So if you start to feel bad and you take a rapid test and it shows negative, the instructions on the rapid test actually say you should be taking 2 tests. So when you look at this idea that you're going to send 4 tests per household, that's really only for 2 people. It's not for 4 people. And so, using these tests constantly over and over is going to create some supply chain issues. And that's why we really think having more accessible, highly accurate PCR tests with fast turnaround is the solution at the local level to address the problem.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, isn't it? Supply chain, lack of testing. I think we need those TikTokers to give us demonstrations on how to properly self-administer a COVID test. Gerald Commissiong, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.